Hey everyone, and welcome to From Waterloo to the Alamo. I'm your host, Traci Wilson, and today we have Leland Stone. He is the owner of the Roosevelt Library and Social Club. Leland, I am so grateful for the conversation today, for you to sit down, and of course, you're letting us set up in your beautiful, beautiful place today at the Roosevelt Library. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about the place that we're in right now, the Roosevelt Library. It is historic. It's, from 1929. So I want to hear about a little bit about your background and how you came to kind of own and operate this beautiful place that we're sitting in today.
So I've lived in several historic houses in San Antonio. I started at the Perrin's house of Perrin Beidel, an 1860s house,
Wow.
solid stone walls out by Perrin Beidel and 410. Not the best part of town, but on 11 acres, and the house was in the middle, and the tree was, the oak tree in front was hundreds of years old, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Monte Vista, enjoyed that neighborhood. And then we found one of the big Victorian houses for sale off the market, of course, as all the nice places are,
Right.
at the corner of Madison and Sheridan. Turns out that was actually the house that my grandparents and my grandmother and my two great aunts lived in during the Mexican Revolution.
Oh my
Their
God.
home was in San Luis Potosí, Mexico. And it became very dangerous during the Revolution. So they came up on a famous train ride that the train stopped, and the people were barricading the tracks and made it to San Antonio. And so I expect that my great-grandfather went back and forth to Mexico, but the three little girls, one of which was my grandmother, and my great-grandmother lived at the Chabot House in King William.
Oh, wow.
Then I needed a new house, and I talked to my real estate agent, and I said, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a big parking lot? Because then all my friends, because I've always had my business and my house together.
Yeah.
So I was actually on a trip in Milan to the Gessi showroom, Gessi, a beautiful, like one of the most over-the-top plumbing showrooms, certainly in the world. And they renovated an old theater, an underground theater, and turned it into an event space, but also a showroom for their fixtures. Fixtures that are displayed like a movie scene, not even a museum. We're past museum. I mean, 2-story rooms with glass shelves and giant rainhead waterfalls, going down into a basin filled with bronze crocodiles. I mean, like totally over the top.
Yeah.
And they host, Chanel runway shows and TV shows and all sorts of things. And when this building, my agent found it for me, I thought, you know what, I could do that. I could display my hardware and plumbing like museum pieces, but also host events. What I didn't realize, fast forward 10 years, is that the building, the events would really eclipse everything else.
Yeah.
And now people want to have events here all the time.
Well, it's beautiful. You've done a fantastic job. Like we mentioned, it's, it's 1929, it's historic. What were some of the things you had to do to, renovate, preserve? I mean, I'm sure there's hoops, right? I mean, you have to probably have some parameters you have to stay in when you're fixing something up or, painting, et cetera.
So the building ended its life as a library in 1968.
Okay.
And it was I've heard various little city offices of one sort and another. I think Saws even was here, had offices here for a little while. But the major renovation occurred in the early 80s with the Fire and Police Pension Fund.
Okay.
It's a multi-billion-dollar fund, and this was their head office. And they really spared no expense completely renovating the building and adding the lower floor. Since the building's on a slope, the lower floor has windows on the west side.
Wow.
So you enter on the main level, but then there are 3 staircases that take you down to what is a very contemporary space that was going to be offices and different things for the pension fund, but which they never finished out.
Interesting.
They ended up moving to the north, but they're the ones that did the electrical and the plumbing and everything else.
So what did you do when you bought the space?
So I had to. They had closed off a few of the large arched openings, and so I just reopened those. The floors were originally tile, but by the time I got the building, that was all gone. So I put in these white oak, solid white oak floors.
Oh, it's stunning.
And then, of course, I had to renovate the kitchen. They actually had built a kitchen. The pension fund had built a kitchen, which we used for years. I'm not sure how. But then I renovated it with a La Cornue from Paris, the big, huge ovens.
They're stunning, by the way. They're stunning, which, I mean, it clearly goes hand in hand. I mean, if you are hosting events, right, you guys do the food and the catering. But let's talk a little bit about, y'all host all types of events. You host weddings, you host art galleries. Y'all did some reveal, right, for Fiesta of the dresses, which is very top secret. I have learned a lot about being from Austin, but I mean, y'all have done quite a few things, and like you said, that's kind of been the big thing you guys do now outside of the social club that you guys have.
So, right, the social club is certainly the primary user of all the building. It's technically a 501c7, so a nonprofit social club, like all the other social clubs in San Antonio, like the Argyle and the Club Giroux. So the members can come for breakfast, brunch, lunch, afternoon tea, dinner, almost 7 days a week. And we host for the members what we call a member reception, which is every other Monday, which is a big elaborate dinner with live entertainment and craft cocktails and everything.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so do you have a limit of the amount of members that you're going to allow as part of the Roosevelt Social Club?
There's a board, and they certainly have talked about that, but right now it's every other Monday for the member reception. There's no reason it couldn't be every Monday, and we just double our capacity.
Right.
Different members use clubs for different things. So we're a true social club in that we have some tables that have communal dining. And so there are quite a few, actually, I think our number of single women members exceeds that of men members because you're never dining alone.
Yeah.
You're at the grand hall table that seats, 20 people, and you always have fun people to be with.
That's awesome. Do you think that the events are gonna eventually? I mean, do you have any let me say this, with the plans for, you do the art gallery, right? So someone can rent it out for
Correct.
X amount of days and they can put up all their art. And you kind of let them have it for, what's your timeline if someone was to host an art gallery or something along those lines?
Well, we had the Gabriel Prize here. I think it was here for 7 years, which was a major body of work by famous architects all over the country. So that is gone. So we rent it out to people doing little pop-ups or sometimes a longer term exhibit.
Right. Well, I mean, I feel like that's a really unique aspect of something you guys offer. But what makes, I feel like, Roosevelt Library and Social Club stand out from other social clubs?
God, that is a really good question.
I know. Well, I mean, I think it's fantastic.
So having grown up in San Antonio, not all my life, but a lot of it, I wanted to do something that was different, that was geared towards a younger crowd. So, for example, our most formal event on a regular basis are the member receptions. And the only requirement, other than, no shorts and no denim and things like that, is that gentlemen have to wear a jacket. But a tie is optional.
I love that.
Which makes us very different in San Antonio. San Antonio, you have to wear a tie to most clubs.
Okay.
At our caliber. So we don't require that, but we are also, on the flip side, we are the strictest club for no technology. You can't even display a cell phone during the member receptions. So it really, everyone truly is disconnected.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really nice, actually, because in a day and age where we're always on our phone, we're glued to our phone, we're constantly looking at emails, there is something so different and just, I guess I could say, meaningful and thoughtful when someone's looking you in the eye when they're talking versus, yep,
Or even looking at their watch. We don't allow smartwatches either. Now that's just for the member receptions.
Right.
We have other events, like we had our tasting notes last night. Of course, people enjoy taking photos and things, but I think that there has to be one regular event that you have that, just really makes people disconnect. And we burn about 50 taper, 100% beeswax candles every night. So the whole, everyone just looks so good in candlelight.
Yeah.
And the phone is bright.
Right.
And so it destroys the ambiance.
Well, and I think the part of a social club is to connect with other
Right.
people.
Actually, that's our mantra is the art of conversation and the exchange of ideas and fellowship.
Well, and it's, it's proven. Let's not do all these studies about the whole, how phones have created, more depression and whatnot. But there is something so uplifting about sitting down and having a conversation with someone, looking them in the eye. And it's probably going to create such an incredible environment between your members here, right? Which is, again, going to make you unique and stand out and make people want to keep coming back for more member
But,
dinners.
look, on the flip side, when members come for lunch, we have these, big screens, big TVs on easels that are on wheels. And so they'll be doing presentations during their lunch. It's a working lunch.
Right.
So I think that every event has its sort of place of how it can be.
And you can adapt if you need to, which is really nice.
Hello, my name is Matthias Braganza, General Sales Manager at Mack Hike Ford Lincoln, your #1 Ford dealer in Central Texas. We are here for all your automotive needs, Ford, Lincoln, pre-owns, all year makes and model. If we don't have it, we'll find it. You won't find anybody that will work as hard as I will to earn your business. Thank you for making us #1 in Austin, Texas.
So why don't we talk a little bit about the food? Okay, so I've had the pleasure of eating here twice, and your chef is phenomenal. I feel like you can take a Caesar salad with chicken on it, and y'all just have taken it to a whole nother level. You have elevated the Caesar salad, you've elevated the chicken Caesar salad just by the way your chef crafts everything. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your menu, how you've come to curate it, and why your food is so incredible.
So my chef, Shi Hua Fu, or Stephen, one of his American
Stephen,
name.
yeah, I'll say that.
Actually, when I'm having been born in Asia, in Tokyo, and then I lived in Singapore as an adult, when he told me his name was Stephen, and 22 years ago when he started working for me, I said, that's not your name. And now everyone calls him Shi Hua, his real name. So Shiwan never worked in a restaurant. He worked as a private chef for me.
Oh, okay.
And that's so when you live, in a nice big house and have staff, you want to provide your staff with every opportunity to succeed. And that means starting with ingredient quality. That means the quality of the ingredients really has to be paramount. And it's up to me here now at the Roosevelt Library to align the quality of the food with the prices and make it palatable still by using very high quality food.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about, just some of the things you were saying. You fly in your ramen noodles from Japan, correct?
Exactly, because they're fresh, they're gourmet, they're much better than the dried. But, other little things, we make our own veal demi-glace. Veal demi-glace, if you talk to like a French chef, Damien Wattel actually cooked the member receptions for 5 years. And I went in the kitchen one day and he was taking out some of the demi-glace, which we freeze into cubes, so in vacuum seal, so you always have it, available. And I said, what can you put demi-glace on? And his response is, what can you not put demi-glace on?
Wow.
So it starts with 50 pounds of veal bones that are covered in tomato paste and herbs and roasted into the oven and then put into huge copper stock pots. For 2 days, they simmer. And then you go from 2 huge stock pots down to about this much, which are put into ice cube trays, frozen, vacuum sealed, in sets of 4. So you always have demi-glace. It's like the secret weapon.
Well, it seems like a really hard process.
And you can buy demi. It's not the same.
It's not the same. Which is probably why you have this incredible kitchen that you added that fantastic say it again. It's
In
the
La Cornue.
La Cornue.
I had
yes.
to because I'm the dealer for La Cornue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then there you go.
And so I had to have a display. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, what a wonderful opportunity. I will renovate the kitchen, put the largest La Cornue in here. The plan was that kitchen was really going to be the fancy kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes we have little dinners in there, and it's like the gourmet kitchen. Waldorf Astoria had that. They had a fancy the copper kitchen. You could actually eat there, but then really all the food was made in a big commercial kitchen.
Right.
And the HDRC approved us adding onto the building and putting in a commercial kitchen. But as it turns out, if you're just really organized and you get your mise en place all taken care of, prep a lot, you don't need a giant commercial kitchen to cook. I mean, we do seated dinners of 80.
Wow.
Seated dinners, all with Strasbourg sterling silver,
Mm-hmm.
silver chargers, everything. And of course, for larger groups, when we do either buffets or food stations, hundreds of people.
That's incredible. But I think you mentioned earlier one of your secret sauces, for example, with your chicken is you get it that same day and you cook it that same day.
Well, it can't ever be frozen,
Right.
and it has to be air chilled.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
they'll say that on the pack because you know it's air chilled because you're paying twice as much.
You're paying two
Right.
times as much. Yeah. And so if someone like for your seated dinners, or even if a member wanted to come in and have lunch, one day, what's your requirement? How far in advance do
That
they
is
have
a
to let you
really
know?
so. Why do restaurants, especially clubs, they typically lose money on their meal service consistently, and they make money on the events. Now, we also make money on the events, but we didn't want to lose an enormous amount of money on the meal service. So our menu is very large for everything. They're large menus because you have to order the day ahead.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like if you're taking a flight and, if you're checking in online, they ask you which meal you want.
Yeah.
And these days for business class and first class, you're often asked that weeks before.
Mm-hmm.
We're just asking 24 hours in advance.
Mm-hmm.
You decide what you want because the chef often goes and shops that day for you.
Yeah. And I think that's something that is so unique and probably why your food is a cut above the rest.
So it also takes an enormous amount of recipe testing. Friday, we have 70 people coming. There's a Korean pianist that won the Gurwitz, and she's coming in from South Korea, and we're having a dinner. She's performing, and we're having a dinner for 70 people. And we always like to do a menu item, the entree of the country they're from, not really for them, but
Yeah.
it's for us to kind of get in the mood. So we're doing Korean bibimbap.
Oh, wow. So what is that?
It's the rice with all the little other vegetables and kimchi and a fried egg and what's bulgogi meat. But if you've ever had bulgogi meat,
I haven't.
I was conceived in Korea, so I grew up eating a lot of bulgogi later in life. Obviously not there. It's a very cheap cut of meat, and it's tough, but it's very flavorful because it's been marinated. What we do is we make it out of beef tenderloin.
Oh,
We just start with
really
beef
good.
tenderloin, and we trim it all, we marinate it, we cut it a certain way. It changes the entire landscape.
oh, I'm sure. Because how you described it before, I don't know if I would. I mean, everything else sounded great, but beef tenderloin, no, I could get
Right.
on board with that. Well, and it seems like you really curate unique events for people, right? Like, especially getting this Korean pianist in, there's probably not a lot of social clubs that are thinking outside of the box.
Well, that is actually because our 501c3, our nonprofit side, has the purpose of hosting other nonprofits, helping nonprofits host events here, and the exhibition of architectural ornament. So the event that we're having on Friday is actually Musical Bridges Around the World. It's their Empresario Club, their major donors.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been working with them. They have 5 concerts a year. We have been working with them for many years. They have all of their concerts here. So downstairs, they bring in their own pianos because
wow.
we used to do it up in this room, but we can only seat about 30 or 40 people. Now they're 70.
Right.
And so they bring in a piano downstairs where we can seat 100 people. And then they come upstairs for dinner.
Oh, see, that's really nice because you have 2 separate spaces for
like 2
people to
venues in
enjoy.
one.
Yeah, for people to enjoy. And is that how when you host weddings?
Oh my God. They love the form. Actually, we have a wedding coming up. They just booked it. the wife or the woman, she wants a very formal seated dinner. And we can do that. That's our specialty. But he wants a speakeasy vibe. Well, that's downstairs.
Yeah.
We practically have a speakeasy. The whole downstairs, remember, very contemporary, concrete floors, white walls, exposed ceiling, lots of directional lights. It's like a nightclub.
Yeah, but it's really pretty too.
Thank you.
It's really pretty. So how many people can you seat for a seated dinner? Yeah, up here, of course.
We have done 80 to 90. I much prefer less. In one room, we've done in one room 80.
Yeah.
It's a little tight. I'm just so much, I'm used to lots of space. But most restaurants don't have that much space.
Yeah, they really don't. Well, and what I think makes the Roosevelt Library so unique is the pieces that you have curated and put in here.
Yeah, as somebody said recently, they were here at an event, and I had, I always attend the events, and I talk to the people, and sometimes clear plates if they need to be cleared. And this man was there, and he touched the floral arrangement. We always have that big elaborate floral arrangement. He goes, everything here is real. Your candles are real. They're not LED candles. They're real. And not only that, they're 100% beeswax. And the flowers are real. And the silver is real silver.
Yeah.
It's not stainless.
Beautiful.
It's
yes.
silver.
Yes.
Everything is real. And so the art here is real.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's really great is if someone asks you about a piece or about, a piece of silver or, the piano or, like you said, art, where it came from, the history of it, which I think makes everything about this place more unique. And a lot of that has to do with you and the people you've curated to help with, staffing and the dinners and whatnot, which is such a testament to you of creating an experience when you come to the
Don't you
Roosevelt
think
Library.
that a house, and a lot of people feel that, this is my house, but they feel it like it's entering into a grand house. But a house is only a house really if it has events and it gets used. It's like having a fancy car that sits in the garage.
Right.
It needs to be driven.
It needs to be driven for sure. Well, and I think, everything you've put in here feels extremely warm. Just the room we're sitting in here, being able to do this podcast, just, the beautiful, you have all the books behind us. It feels very warm and it feels, I don't want to say the word cozy, but it does feel cozy. But you also feel like there is so much history here. And you've done a fantastic job of preserving that.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Brandon Sparks with Nautilus Lending, based right here in Central Texas. We're a full-service mortgage operation and brokerage, serving Greater Texas as well as Florida and Tennessee. One of the greatest things about our shop is our ability to facilitate creative financing. What that means is that anything legally possible, we can get it funded. You want to find out more? Reach out to us, www.nautiluslending.com. That's www.nautiluslending.com.
Why don't you tell me about one of the most exciting events that you've had here since you guys have been open? I know you've had a lot, or maybe it doesn't even have to be exciting. Maybe one that's.
Oh yeah, I got
okay,
a story for you.
Okay, great.
So it was a children's birthday on a Sunday, and the child having the birthday was 1. So really it was more about, the other people there. And they wanted to have like a petting zoo,
Yeah.
You have a petting zoo, you touch the little animals, but these were not like little animals. They had like 15 different animals, including a full-size camel, like a real camel.
Oh my gosh.
I have no idea where they got it. So the problem was it looked like it was going to rain that day. So I had my butler go down and out at storage, and those interlocking foam pads you see, you get them at like Academy, yeah.
Yes.
And he created a huge square in the entry hall, and they brought the camel into the entry hall to show it off. So one is I didn't realize this. I should have realized. I've ridden camels. I should have realized camels don't have hooves. They have paws like dogs because they spread on the sand.
Oh, gosh.
So the pad was not necessary. And then the second thing I found out is that camels pee backwards.
Oh gosh.
And
Oh
so
my gosh.
it just started in, so, the silver vault is right by the entry hall.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran, and the first thing I grabbed was a huge silver punch bowl. And I just stood there behind the camel, because remember, backwards, and,
Oh my gosh.
and waited till it was finished and then handed it to a member of my staff.
So clean out. Oh my goodness.
But then they also had a pony. And so I had this idea, because I guess I was getting bored. I had this idea we would do etiquette class with a pony. So in the entry hall, on the pad, they set up a table for two with all the sterling silver and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the host, the father, sat there, and then I had the pony on the other side. And then I taught them etiquette. And so I would tell the pony, now we're going to use this implement. And then, of course, the pony would, it was all a farce, because the pony would just eat whatever we put there.
Whatever you put there. Oh my gosh, that's cute. Well, I mean, it's great that you still accommodated, but oh my gosh, a camel inside this entryway.
Yeah, the hump hit the top of the door when it was coming in.
Oh my gosh.
And then I said, well, do you think you can make it sit, how camels sit?
Yeah.
And the trainer was like, she gave all these commands, and it let out this kind of agonizing groan, and then it sat.
And then it sat. Well, tell me too, y'all's property, how big is it? How big is
So
Roosevelt?
this is, including the little island on the other side of the street, this is just under 1.5 acres.
Okay.
But what makes it really unique is that this was part of the park. This is the Roosevelt Park Branch Library. It was built in the park.
Okay.
About 10 years later, the city needed a way to get under the train tracks. And because we're on a slope, they decided to make the street now that separates this property from the park. And that was called Underpass Street for many, many years because it goes under the railroad.
Right.
Now it's actually called Roosevelt. So actually Roosevelt is on both sides of the building now, which is a little bit confusing.
Yeah, I could see
But
that.
the wonderful thing is there are no adjoining neighbors.
Mm-hmm. See, that's really nice. That's really nice. And you have all this space. Do y'all do any events like tinted outside, or have y'all not ventured there yet?
We have little, croquet and a game called Cube where you throw batons, and sometimes Cyclovia will have events out there.
Oh, that's really
the real
nice.
goal is, of course, building either another building out there or fencing it in and creating more hardscape where people can enjoy the outdoors.
The outdoors mo. And it would probably expand your footprint of hosting events, right?
Oh, for sure.
So you could do some lovely little cocktail hour outside, and then everybody comes
A great
inside.
example is the Southwest School of Arts, although I think it's called something different now. Their outside area, it's all very level, easy to walk, big tree wells. So the trees, are enjoying being there too. And,
Yeah.
yeah, what a great place to host events.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, you mentioned earlier about that you also sell high-end hardware fixtures. Tell us a little bit about that, the brands and whatnot you sell.
Well, oddly enough, that is the same business as my great-grandfather in San Antonio. Sorry, great.
Great.
And my great-grandfather, his son, also did it, and they did it through Mexico as well. When I got in the business, I didn't even know they were in the hardware business. I started in the hardware business because my concentration from the Cornell Hotel School is in the management of private estates.
Wow, okay.
And I did that. I was hired by Stavros Niarchos, the Greek shipping magnate.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh.
He died 1 week later.
Was it in writing when he had hired you? Was it?
Well, it was in the apartment when the EMS came in.
Oh, okay.
He died of he had a dental surgery, and he was very elderly. Anyway, then I went on to work for 2 other families over the course of a year, and I really enjoyed setting up houses and, of course, all the entertaining and organizing. And I would buy for these families. But instead of just going and buying it, I'd set up accounts so I could get them a better price.
Right.
And then when I moved back to San Antonio, I started working for a few people. I was managing Linda Pace's house and some Zachary properties and things, and buying. And that over many years eventually turned into a business that sells very high-end hardware, plumbing, lighting, La Cornue, doors and windows, I also sell the inexpensive things. It's just more
Right.
fun selling the expensive things.
Well, of course it is. I mean, it's fun to find properties like the Roosevelt Library, off market because, you know how, I mean, special, first of all, a place like this is. And you've clearly created such a great vision with it, right? And you've created something a little unique, right? Different than all those other social clubs out there. And you also sell beautiful hardware fixtures.
Which are all displayed like pieces of art.
Yeah. And I think that's what also makes it super unique is that the way it's displayed, you really get the essence and you can really, to me, I think admire why it is such an expensive, plumbing fixture, right? Is because they're all so beautiful, but you do a good job of it, right? The way you display it. Tell me a little bit about, I know that you guys are trying to create the Roosevelt Residence Hotel. Tell me more about that because that's so interesting.
Right. So this is a partnership with my friend Richard Cameron, a very notable classical architect out of New York. And I've worked on many significant projects with him all over the country. And I wanted to visualize something that might be built. What if we did build something, what would be the concept? Because obviously he knows architecture and I know fixtures, but I think that there's a different way of thinking about living. So the concept is a relatively small residence, but with incredible finish out and very high ceilings and all very classical. And imagine 3 or 4 of those sharing 7 guest suites.
Okay.
So the guest suites would be shared by the 3 or 4 owners. And so sometimes you need 7 guest rooms.
Yeah.
But you might have a year where you don't have any guests.
Right.
Why not, why you don't need to be occupying all that space. And then the club members would be able to book those suites. And so providing a little income to go against the HOA fees.
Okay. And I feel like that's a real smart concept. Because I think with, like you said, your background and the fixtures and creating the spaces and creating very unique high-end experiences. And I'd have to say, I feel like every time I've come to the Roosevelt Library, the experience is different, but it always is very elevated, which is really nice. The staff is incredibly kind. They're fantastic. And like I said, the food and everything about it's great. So I could imagine that you would channel all of that into a residence.
I enjoy having a lot of staff around me at all times, but my parents can't stand that, for example. And I would have to say most people would prefer their housekeepers and let alone all the other people, not be in their space. So the residence we designed, every kitchen has a dumbwaiter going down to the basement. You can literally pile up your dirty dishes in there and send them down and they come up clean, which is what we had at my house in Colorado.
Oh, wow.
The kitchen had a dumbwaiter. They got sent down to a scullery and my houseman would wash the dishes and they would come back up.
I mean, you don't see dumbwaiters anymore either, which is like, that used to be, when I was younger, a real big thing. And now it's like, nope, no one does that anymore. But they were very useful. They were very useful. So where would the residence go? Would it go on?
The south lawn.
The south
and
lawn.
it would mirror the floors of this building, but with another floor above.
Okay.
So this is technically the first floor, even though we're on the second floor.
Right.
And so the residence is the guest rooms would be at this level. And then the next floor would be the residences. So quite a bit high with a great view of San Antonio.
Oh, see, that would be lovely. And see, that's what I feel like is so important about people like yourself or people like, who we just spoke with, Bill Schoen with Oxbow Development Group, is that you are preserving part of San Antonio history, right? With these historic places. And then of course you're creating a new vision, right? But you're still channeling the vibe of what the Roosevelt Library is supposed to encompass.
It should also, for example, all of the air handlers are in the basement. Nobody ever goes to your unit to change a filter. The filters are not there.
Right.
If they leak, air conditioners leak.
Right, they do.
The water's down in the basement, no one cares, right?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's going to be, so do you have a timeline for when those residents might come to fruition?
So we're just finishing up the renderings for the actual residences, and I need to put online the floor plans of that. And basically, it'll be a few people coming together that want to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be.
My position, yes, I own the Roosevelt Library, but according to the club, I'm actually the general manager and a non-voting member of the board. So over there, I'll just be the manager of that building.
Right.
I'll be back to doing what I got my degree in, being a butler.
Right. At Cornell, yes, that's a very good degree.
Actually, so when Stravosniakos wrote to the dean at the hotel school and said he wanted somebody to manage all of his properties all over the world, which were, his yacht at that time was the size of Queen Elizabeth's, et cetera, the Palace in St. Moritz, the London property, the New York property. And the dean interrupted a class I was in my senior year and said, I have a letter that I need to hand deliver to Leland Stone because he's doing a self-directed concentration in something I didn't even know existed.
That is crazy. And that opportunity just fell into your lap.
I was fairly qualified.
I'm just saying because you were so specialized in the fact that
there was no one else doing it. Actually,
he needed a very specific thing, and it happened to be you, which is so hard to do these days. But man, Leland, you have created such a beautiful environment and such a beautiful concept that I think sets you, a step above the rest of all the other social clubs that I know about in San Antonio. But I also think it has to do a lot with you and who you are and the vision you have, put here in the Roosevelt Library. So it's very impressive. And I think you have an incredible thing going. And of course, the food's amazing. So, if there's anyone out there who has not experienced the Roosevelt Library or been to an event or had an event here, I highly encourage you to do it because it is really one of a kind.
Thank you.
So you've done a fantastic job. And I appreciate you sitting down with us today and telling us about, your beautiful space and letting us actually use it here today for the podcast, because what a beautiful backdrop this is.
You're welcome to come back and do more podcasts.
Yes, we would love to. It's been a wonderful experience. So thank you. And that's all we got. Thank you. Today, we have Maxine. She is the Weimaraner extraordinaire. Maxine, thank you for joining us today. I have a few questions for you. Why don't you tell me about how much you love living here at the Roosevelt Library? Great. Maxine, why don't you tell me, do you enjoy taking your walks at the World Heritage UNESCO Park right across the street? And I guess lastly, Maxine, tell me, how do you enjoy baths? Well, that's all we got. Thanks for watching.